Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to look at creating lights and shadows. So we're going to start off by focusing on the different types of lights, and you can see an example here, and then we're going to move on to looking at how we can create different types of shadows. Okay, and this gives you an example of the kind of shadow effects we can create as well, so using lights and shadow creation together. Okay, so if you start by opening the start file, it's called Lights.Start, and then first of all we're going to create a text layer. So if you select the text tool, click on the layer, we're just going to type out the word light. Okay, you'll see that'll automatically create the text layer. Okay, we're then going to create a light, so if you right click in the layer panel, go to New and Light, and we've got the dialog box here. If you select, so for light type we're going to start by creating an ambient light. Okay, you can select the colour for the light here, so we'll go for a sort of yellowy colour. We'll choose whichever colour you want. Intensity you can control here as well. We'll stick with 100% at the moment. Okay, and you'll see that an ambient light sort of evenly lights the whole of the area. Okay, we're going to be dealing with the lights and the layer in 3D space. So if you look on the layer panel here, next to each of the layers we have this 3D icon here, like a 3D cube. Just make sure that that is checked on for both the layers, the lights layer and the photograph layer. And that means we can deal with them in three-dimensional space rather than two-dimensional. Okay, to access a light's properties, there's two ways you can go about that. You can expand the light layer, and you'll have light options here, and we have the intensity and colour that we can access here to change those at any time, or you can double click on the actual layer on the panel here, and that will open the dialog box that we used initially. Okay, we'll just have a look at one or two more settings. We can change the light type if we want, so if we double click on the ambient light layer here, we can change the light type, so we're going to change it to parallel. Okay, and you'll see that parallel light is slightly different. It has what's called a fall off, so where it goes into shadow at the edge here, so the light is lighting up a specific area of the image. Okay, and you'll see in the dialog for the parallel light, again we can control the colour, intensity, but now we have fall off, which we can set to smooth. Various options there. The radius of the light itself, which we can reduce, as you can see, or enlarge. The fall off distance, again, which has a similar effect. Again, to how quickly it goes from light to shadow at the edges here. Again, we can control the darkness of the shadow, and we can actually select whether to cast shadows or not as well. Okay, to now see, I was talking about three-dimensional space before. Now you can see the three-dimensional widget here with the X, Y and Z axes on it. If we go down to the bottom right hand corner here, we're on one view at the moment. If we change to two views, then we can actually see the elements in three-dimensional space. Okay, so we have the widget for the light itself here, the X, Y, Z. We have the actual solid layer here with the photograph on it that the light is pointing at, and it just gets a sense of how they relate to one another in three-dimensional space. Okay, you can see this icon here. It's like a target that controls what's called the point of interest, and you can see as I move that around, if you go to the parallel light layer here and just expand the transform subsection, you can compress the light option section, expand the transform section. You see point of interest and position here. So the point of interest, you can see as I move it, it moves the values, the X, Y, Z values here. The position is the position of the actual the light itself, again, so we can move it along the X, Y or Z axes to control the position of the light itself. Again, we can control the values here, so if we want to move it, we can also move the point of interest here along the x-axis and so on. So we can move them visually here or move the values here. Okay, just to show you another type of light here, so if we double click on the parallel light, we can select point light, and this gives you a more focused light, again you can control the various values here. We'll stick with what we've got for now. So just to show the relative positioning of objects, now if we click on the, so in the 3D view here, click on the text, we can actually move the text along the Z-axis forward, and then we can select the light. It's probably easier to click on the actual layer to select objects sometimes, particularly when they're close together, and then we can move the light actually in behind the text. Okay, so you see that the light is now between the text and the image. So this kind of throws the text into kind of shadow, because the light now is pointing at just at the image. Okay, so just to show how you can move the relative positions of the various elements. You see, if we move the light now back in front of the text, it lights up the text as it is doing the image, and move it back, and it goes back into shadow. Okay, the final type of light, so again if we double click on point light and this time select spotlight, you'll see the spotlight is a very focused type of light. Okay, and again the spotlight has various controls here. So again for spotlight, if you expand transform here, you've got various ways of rotating along the different axes, moving the point of interest. So you can either do that manually here, or you can do it by controlling the values here. Okay, so now we'll just quickly look at using more than one light. So we're going to add a second light. So if we right click in the layer panel, just compress everything, new light, and we're going to create a new ambient light. We'll change the colour. Okay, we'll see how that looks. So you can see that's the two combined now. So again, you can adjust the values now with the two combined. So we might want to just reduce the intensity of that. Take that down a bit, and we get an immediate preview there. That's probably looking a bit more like it. Okay, so that's just a quick intro to the different types of lights, how to access the various settings, and how you can use them together. And also importantly, this concept of three-dimensional space and how you can position the lights in three-dimensional space, and the different elements like the text and the imagery. Okay, so if you open the Shadows start file, and then if you right click in the composition window, select switch view layout and switch back from two views to one view. You can then drag, if you go to the project window, if you drag layer 3 logo into the window, you scale the logo to about 50%. You can do that using the layer settings, pressing S, select the layer, press S, change from 100 to 50. Then right click in the layer panel, select new solid. So we're going to insert a solid layer. Okay, drag that underneath the logo in the layers panel. Okay, then make sure you make both layers 3D. So remember, click under the 3D cube. So we're going to be working with these in three-dimensional space, just like we did with the lights. Well, we are still going to be working with the lights, but working with shadows too. That will switch to two views. You'll see that you've got the logo and the solid, the background, are both at the same point on the Z-axis. You see we've got the left-hand side view here in the left window. So we're going to introduce a light again. So if we go right-click in the layer panel, new, and we'll use a point light. New light and point. Okay, again, don't forget about these settings here. You can adjust these at any point by double-clicking on the layer. Just make sure Cast Shadows is ticked this time, because we're going to be dealing with shadows. Now, if we go to the layer panel, go to the logo layer, expand, go down to the material options sub-layer here, expand that one, and you'll see where it says Cast Shadows at the moment is set to off. So we want to turn that on. So if you just click on that to toggle it on, and also accept shadows and accepts lights should both be on too. Now we now have three elements. We've got the light, the logo and the solid in the background. If we now click on the logo layer to make sure that that's selected, okay, and then drag it along the z-axis away from the solid towards the light, you'll see that it now casts a shadow. So the light is hitting the logo and casting a shadow on the solid behind. Okay, if we go now to the light layer, point light layer, we can have a look at the light options here, and again we can experiment with these. So we can turn shadow darkness up or down. We can control the diffusion of the shadow, so really how blurred it is or how sharp it is. So again, you can have an experiment with these. Now you'll see at the moment that the logo is, its colour has changed quite dramatically. If we want to preserve its colour, we can go into the logo layer here, into material options again, and where it says accept shadows and accepts lights, we can turn accepts lights off, and you'll see that we can then see the kind of true colours of the logo if we wanted, but still retain the shadow. So you can adjust these settings to get the appearance that you want. Again, don't forget you've got these various viewpoints in the bottom right corner here. So remember, you select the individual views. So if we want to return to where we were, if we select the top view, the left view here, go down to the drop down and select left, we'll go back to the left hand view. We select the right hand view here and return that to active camera. We get this, the front view, the camera view. Again, you can have a play with these. So if we click the left window here, click the drop down. If we go to the custom views here, then this gives us that three-dimensional view that you remember from earlier when we were looking at lights initially. So you can see the relation of all the different objects to one another. So again, we can move the light here in relation to the logo. So we can see how we're moving these in three-dimensional space and how they're affecting the shadows and the light in that respect. Okay, so finally we might want to introduce an additional light. So we have our point light. So if we right click, new light again, we might want to say introduce an ambient light. Maybe choose a different colour. Again, we can play with the intensity here. Okay, and see how that looks. So if it's a bit bright, again we can double click on the layer here, adjust the intensity down, and you'll see once we've added the light we get a preview here. So we can do it that way, or if you remember, we can go inside the layer settings here and adjust it within the layer panel here. Okay, so that's essentially how you work with lights and shadows in three-dimensional space.